comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostic alongside Scarlett Fu. We're counting you down to the closing bell, and here to help take us beyond the bell. It's a global simulcast with our friends Carol Masser, who looks like she's in a good mood, and Tim Stenovic, who I can never get a read on his face.
I'm always happy.
Welcome to our audience.
Carol's getting ready. She's going to go to DJ D-Salt party.
Yeah, I hear there's some DJ jobs open.
Yeah.
Be careful there. Be careful.
Be careful.
All right. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms. Yes, I do think at the next Lollapalooza, they might have an opening there for you, Carol Masser. I don't know if you've ever DJ'd before.
I'm not really good. I dance pretty well. Wow.
Do you?
Can I
Prove
say
it.
that? Can you even say that?
Prove it.
Right. You
say that. You can't just say that.
This is what your social media feed is for.
Exactly. No,
Have you guys seen that Seinfeld episode with Elaine?
Yeah, I figured it's like Elaine Bennett.
That's
Ouch! Man, it's like the spike in yields today. Ouch! This all really hurts. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this market. I think it's interesting that stocks have rolled over a little bit here. Maybe we're all realizing, okay, with this spike in yields, again, higher for longer.
Yeah, and you're talking about the bond market. I'm talking about the equity market that is certainly confused about where it's going today. I mean, we had lows as low as more than 0.8%, Scarlett, and highs as high as half a percentage point higher, and we're going to end flat on the day.
We're ending flat on the day, it looks like. And of course, the ongoing Middle East conflict is keeping things in check, even as it's interesting, companies seem comfortable enough to move forward with some kind of M&A.
Yeah, but as Anthony Sanclebeni, our previous guest here on Bloomberg Television, pointed out too, it's also about not necessarily just M&A overall, but kind of the more strategic moves here. And Choice Wyndham sounds like it makes sense. Exxon Mobil, Pioneer sounds like it makes sense, but there are a lot of other tie-ups where I think investors would maybe scratch their head and push back a little bit here. All right, a mixed day here in the markets as we get the closing bells in New York here. The Dow Jones Industrial Average looks like it's going to finish the day right around relatively unchanged, we'll call it. It's up about 14 points here, but that's about a less than a fraction of a percent here on the day. The S&P 500 is going to finish in the red, but also only down by a fraction of a percent, down less than 1 point. The NASDAQ Composite, a more meaningful move lower, down about 0.2% or about 34 points. And your outperformer on the day, that's the Russell 2000. No ambiguity there, a 1% gain for the Russell. We should point out the mid-caps, S&P 400 mid-caps, also up 1% on the day, and the transports, Carol, also up about 1% as well.
That's interesting, especially the small cap move. But maybe playing into expectations. The consumer's still out there shopping, and good things for are going on in the U.S. economy and those smaller players. Having said that, let me go back to the S&P 500. Most of the names in the index higher today, up about 337 to be exact. Romaine.
Yeah, let's get to some earnings crossing the wire right now. United Airlines out with their results right now, and here are your numbers for the 3Q. Passenger revenue coming in at about $13.35 billion. That's a beat. Total operating revenue at $14.48 billion. That's a beat. A modest beat, to be sure. Passenger miles in the quarter, a slight beat as well at 67.69 billion. And here's your EPS number for the quarter, $3.65 a share. The street on average was looking for $3.34 a share. We should point out, though, you're seeing the reaction here in the shares down about 1% here in after hours trading. I think what the market really wants to see is that forecast going forward. Remember, fuel costs spiked pretty significantly in the quarter here, so it'll be interesting to see how they frame that, Scarlett, here for 4Q and beyond.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a big concern. But also, let's keep in mind as well that United Airlines has exposure to international routes, which are more lucrative than some of the other airlines that over the last couple of months have warned that they won't be able to maintain the kind of numbers that they were, given that the whole revenge travel thing is slowing down, especially as we head into this fall.
Yeah, I think the question that I have is if consumers are indeed spending less as a result of higher rates, as a result of what we're seeing in the economy, are they still going to be traveling internationally over the next few months? I'm interested to hear from United about that, because after a summer of revenge travel internationally, it could be a concern for some of these airlines.
Just real quickly, another headline here, this involving what's been going on in Israel. The company saying that its adjusted EPS for the fourth quarter would be affected by about $1.50. That's if the Tel Aviv ban stays in place until December. And remember, there are no flights in and out of Tel Aviv on United Airlines, as well as some other airlines here. They originally said that would go through the end of October. They're saying that extends until December. You can expect about $1.50 hit.
That's really surprising to me, guys, that one route would be responsible for that much of a hit to EPS. It's just one route.
Yeah.
Feels like the flow through to the bottom line is pretty
Wow.
quick,
But
right?
keep in mind, it's I mean that's a huge focal point for a lot of transfers around
To elsewhere, right?
yeah, in the
In the
Middle East
region.
and certain parts of Europe here. So I could see how there could be sort of a domino effect. It's not just people visiting Tel Aviv per se, but a lot of folks who depend on that route to get in.
They
and
did
out
have
of that area.
multiple direct flights a
Yeah.
day from the West Coast and the East Coast
Absolutely.
as well.
Well, and it gets into some of the stories that we've talked about. We always talk about higher for longer when it comes to the Federal Reserve. The more this conflict goes on in the Middle East, the repercussions globally will certainly be felt, guys.
Yeah, absolutely here.
All right, so do we want to go redirect to brokers? Should we
Yeah,
do that?
let's see what you got, Carol.
All right, they just crossed as well. We're looking at third quarter third quarter adjusted EPS. Let me just pull it up here. $1.55. That's about 4 cents better than what the street was expecting for. They were looking for $1.51. Looking at third quarter total customer accounts, 2.43 million. That is in line with what Wall Street was expecting, and third quarter customer equity. So looking at in terms of what happening in terms of trading equity and accounts, third quarter customer equity was 369.8 billion. That's a little light, but call it maybe in line. The estimate remain was for 370.03, and I'm looking at that stock up about 1.8% here in the aftermarket.
Yeah, I just want to go back real quickly to United
Sure.
if we can, because those shares continuing to sink here, down 3%, and they're providing a little bit more detail here about the various scenarios, if you will, about the shutdown of flights in and out of Israel and sort of how that would impact earnings. And to go back to your point, Tim, it is a little surprising that you would have one particular hub effectively sort of cause this much damage to their revenue here, but they're making it clear here that this is a big deal for them, and this apparently is a big revenue generator, at least when it's operating normally. So if this does extend past October, at least according to the forecasts are given, you're going to see a huge impact on operating revenue and on capacity as well.
It's interesting too because it's also, from my understanding, a relatively expensive place to fly on a carrier basis because of security concerns and increased security concerns. So they have to, have more security activity around each of those flights in order for them to occur.
All right, let's stay with the transportation sector because J.B. Hunt, the trucking company, just reported results as well. Third quarter earnings per share, $1.80, coming in lighter than anticipated. Analysts were looking for $1.83. Operating revenue in the quarter was $3.16 billion, also a bit lighter than what had been anticipated, $3.18 billion. Intermodal revenue, that is moving from trucking to shipping to rail, $1.56 billion. That is higher than what analysts were looking for, which was $1.51 billion, but certainly as a portion of the operating revenue, it's only about a third or just over a third. Dedicated third quarter revenue, $892 million. That is lighter than what was anticipated as well. So if we take a look at how the stock is performing in after hours trading,
It's relatively unchanged.
Yeah, it looks like
relatively unchanged. Okay, there was some expectation that it was going to come in with a double-digit earnings decline because of those high fuel prices. We talk about that again, and as well as weak demand for goods overall.
Well, that's what I was going to say. On the surface, these numbers look better than some of the expectations. I know it's not like a massive beat or anything here, but if you avoid the worst case scenario, I wonder as we get deeper into earnings season, is that going to be enough to placate investors?
Yeah, I know. In a company like this, forgive me, I'm trying to read the release here. In a company like this, you want to get an idea of what they're anticipating outlook. I mean, these guys are certainly going to see some kind of either demand letdown potentially, or maybe could be seeing some early signs of it in terms of the last quarter.
Right, especially for the holiday quarter, I'm going to be looking at what activity is anticipated for an idea, Scarlett, of what they're expecting from the consumer here.
Yeah, although when it comes down to the consumer is by all accounts, just looking at the retail sales numbers, doing just fine. I think the cost is the big issue here. How much pricing power does a company like this really have when they have to pay more in wages and they have to pay much more in fuel as well?
Yeah. Well, and we should point out, though, too, when we look at some of the consumer numbers here, there still is that sort of tilt to services, something that obviously that doesn't benefit a trucking company. So you do wonder if it's not just the level of consumer spending, but also the mix of, I guess, where that money's going in the economy.
Yeah, and I think with all of these guys, right, in terms of what kind of insight we get, are we feeling like a little bit of more of a cautious tone?
Oh, yeah, I think, and let's face it, I don't think anyone really cares too much about the actual 3Q numbers, right? Everybody really wants to hear the forecast out of these companies, the commentary from the executives about where we're headed in 4Q and really into 2024.
I mean, I think if we look at J.B. Hunt and United as well, these are two companies that rely and spend a lot of money on fuel. So there's been a lot of volatility there, especially, over the last couple of weeks, price increases and price declines. And I think volatility is certainly the name of the game going forward with these companies. We just don't know how much they're going to have to spend on fuel.
Yeah, well, we will certainly hear more a little bit maybe on some of these conference calls. All right, guys, so a little bit of earnings, and we'll continue to watch the trade in the aftermarket and certainly into the Wednesday trade. That's a wrap. Across platform coverage on radio, TV, and YouTube, and of course, Bloomberg Originals Beyond the Bell. We'll catch you again tomorrow.